In this video, I'll be showing you the basics of how to use the DrumRack instrument. For this video, I'll be working in session view, so I'll change the view by hitting the tab key on my computer keyboard. And now I'm going to load in an empty drum rack. So I'm going to go to drums, and then rather than grabbing one of these kicks, so I'm not going to grab a pre-sampled kit. I'm just going to grab this empty drum rack and drag it into a MIDI track. So we get this little window down here, and in this we can start to drop in instruments, individual sounds that then will be assigned to each one of these notes. So this is the note C1, which was a very low note on a MIDI keyboard. And if I click on these little boxes, you can see I just start going up. So for instance, right here is C4. If I go down to the next window, this is C3. In Ableton Live, C3 is middle C on a piano. So keep that in mind. So in other words, this C1 is the C that's 2 octaves below middle C. What would be the low C on a cello. So all I have to do now in DrumRack is load in a sample, and I can load in my own samples, so I can grab them off of my hard drive if I want, or I can also grab samples that come in the Ableton library. So for instance, if I want to, let's say, look for a kick, I search for kick, and here are a bunch of kicks. I can audition them if I want. So I'll grab that, drag it into this, and now this C1 will now play a kick. And when I hit it with my keyboard, and there we go. If I hit C#1, I don't get a sound, or D1, I don't get a sound, because I haven't assigned anything to that. So what we have here are 128 samples that we can load into each one of these. So this is a very different way of working. A lot of instruments, if I look at another instrument and just grab any sound here. And I'll drag this into another track, right? As I hit my low C, we get different pitches based on a tone and color that this instrument makes, right? So here is, again, middle C, or C3, right? And then here's the octave higher C4. And so in a drum rack, what we're doing is we're assigning each key on our MIDI keyboard, or in a MIDI roll, a piano roll, to one particular sound. And then what we can do is each of these sounds is also, we can edit them a little bit as well. So if I click on this, and what happens is it actually loads a version of Simpler, which is one of Ableton's sample instruments. And so you can see I have a few different options here where I can actually transpose it. So if I hit the kick, whoops, let me record enable my drum rack now. And if I hit the kick, I'm going to transpose it. So I can actually change the pitch of it and find the pitch that I want. And I can change other parameters. So if I don't have warp enabled, what will happen is if I transpose it, you'll notice that the duration of the sound changes as well. So if I take it back to the baseline free pitch, it has a certain length. If I make it really low, it goes on much longer. So if I don't want that, what I can do is I can turn warping on, and now it'll keep the duration of the sample the same. Now you'll notice when I did this really up high, I was actually getting almost like a beat. Right? That's because the warping is set to beats. So if I actually want it to be more based on pitch, I might try something like repitch. Let's try that. actually doesn't look like repitch actually works. So let me try complex or complex pro. So complex looks like that works. And let's try tones. So I might have to experiment with these different settings based on the quality of the sample and what I'm changing in terms of the transposition of it. So usually if there's something pitch based, I'm doing pitch or tones or complex pro. And each one of these, complex pro takes the highest amount of CPU. So I want to go easy on this if I can help it. So, or you can just turn off warping and then do this and then live with the fact that some of them will actually have a different duration. And maybe that's okay. Maybe I want that. So I can continue to load samples into this. So I can grab a cymbal, nice boring cymbal. But now I can do some things with it. Cool. And so that's the basics of this of the DrumRack. We can keep adding samples here. Now there is a menu here, this little item right here. And if you want to use the help, the info view, this can be handy to tell me what I'm looking at here. So we have some macro controls, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And this is the chain list. And what this does is it will show me all the different instruments that are present. And then I can also see the I/O for this as well, in terms of I can adjust the panning and the volume if I want to do that. So each of them, I can have independent control over the volume of each of these. And you'll notice we also have volume control over here as well. So, and as I change this, you'll also notice as I select each sample, it changes what sample I'm seeing here. So let me drag a couple more samples. Here's another cymbal. I'll drag it down to here. And I will grab maybe a clap. Okay, and I'll put that down here. So what I can do is, this is, in terms of the receive, this tells me where it is on this grid over here. So if I actually change this number, this D#1, that's where this one's located. If I actually change it to G1, right, it actually moved it up to here. Let me move it up to C#2. So I'll go C#2. And so now that is up there. And I have to find the C#2 on my keyboard to then play this. Okay, so that's what these numbers here are, right? And I can also if I just move it with my mouse, you notice it changed this number. So if I just click and drag it to another area here, another region, it changes that number automatically. And at this number right here, this C3, again, this is middle C. What this means is this is a basic transposition. So this is similar to this transposition here. So if I want to take my kick, so you'll notice I actually already transposed it using this, but then I can also adjust this, and now it will adjust it yet again. So I'm going to do it 1 octave higher. So there's sort of 2 ways I can control transposition. One is from here, right? So instead of C3 being at the original pitch, I'm now transposing it up to C4 here. So this is redundant, but I might, set this to a certain level and then maybe adjust this. And this is actually where a macro can come in handy. So let me open my macro controls. And what these macro controls, we have 8 different control knobs here that then we can assign any knob that's in this simpler object to this. And we can do this one at a time. So if I grab this kick and decide I want to have control over, let's say, the volume of it. Right, so I want to be able to adjust that. But I don't want to have all of this open. So I just want to see the macro. So what I'll do is I click on this map mode switch. then I go and click on the thing I want to put into the macro here. I'm going to say volume, click on volume, and now I'm going to click on this map. And now as I adjust this, you'll notice that this is moving over here. And you see there's this little green light there that indicates that it's been mapped. And so now I can adjust the volume from here. And so let me map something else. So I'm going to map now the, whoops, so turn on mapping. And now I'm going to map the transposition and map that to macro 2. So, and you see it automatically gives it a name. I can also Command R to rename. So I'll just do that. So transpose, and now this transposes. But what I want to do is actually transpose all these clips. So I'm going to grab the next clip, click on transpose, click map, and now both the kick and the cymbal, both of these will be transposed. If I adjust this transpose. In fact, I can keep that. I'm going to keep this cymbal where it is, but now I'm going to adjust this clap. So I'm going to hit transpose and map that. And now I can turn off my mapping. So I can't adjust this cymbal. So this transpose is not affecting that. But if I hit my clap, or my kick, drum, and clap at the same time, all right, so you can do some pretty wild, crazy things with this. These can also be automated as well when we talk about automation. So the DrumRack is truly a versatile, fun tool. This is just an intro to the DrumRack, but this gives you a good sense of what you can do with it, even already knowing this much, using these macro controls, mapping parameters within this, and then loading in different samples into this. If I decide I want to replace a sample, so if I just grab another clap here and drag it over my kick, now that sound has been replaced. Whoops, I dragged it over the wrong thing. Let me drag it into here. Oh, there we go. Or this one. Now it's still being transposed, so maybe I'll... Actually, it isn't, so that's interesting. I've lost the mapping for this one because I replaced it. So if I want this transposition to be affected, I'd have to turn mapping back on. Click on transpose, map it to here, and now this knob would transpose it. If I want to do that. So, okay, so there we have a basic introduction to the DrumRack instrument.